Ethiopia has declared a 6-month-long state of emergency across the whole country following months of anti-government protests. Rights groups say more than 500 people have died in the unrest. The government disputes this figure. In a televised address, Ethiopian Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn said the measure had been taken to protect citizens. The cause of this is that anti-peace forces, in collaboration with foreign enemies of the country, are making organised attempts to destabilise our country, to disrupt its peace and also to undermine the existence and security of our people. Residents in the capital Addis Ababa are divided over whether a state of emergency will help the situation. The state of emergency won't work, said this man. It may serve as a temporary fix, but it won't bring a lasting solution. In my opinion, the government is late to declare the state of emergency. If the government had taken this action earlier, the recent destruction that happened across the country wouldn't have happened. The violence has cast a shadow over a nation where a state-led industrial drive has created one of Africa's fastest-growing economies. In the most recent unrest, at least 55 people were killed in a stampede triggered by clashes between police and demonstrators at an annual festival. The violence is being fueled by two of the country's largest ethnic groups who complain that power in Ethiopia is held by a minority elite.
To California, two police officers responding to a domestic dispute shot and killed through a closed front door. One officer just weeks from retiring, the other a new mom just back from maternity leave. ABC's Adrian Bankert on the deadly standoff.
Tonight, a community and police department heartbroken.
I am awake in a nightmare right now.
Palm Springs police responding to a domestic disturbance call Saturday afternoon, negotiating with 26-year-old John Felix inside his mother's home. Minutes later, 3 officers are shot, 2 killed. 63-year-old Jose Gil Vega, a 35-year veteran of the force, and 27-year-old Leslie Zarebny, just back from maternity leave. She leaves behind a 4-month-old daughter.
To witness her husband in full Riverside County Sheriff's uniform kiss her on the forehead for the last time.
Felix finally taken into custody after a 12-hour standoff. David, Felix will be arraigned on first-degree murder charges later this week. These 2 officers are the first to die in Palm Springs in the line of duty in more than 50 years. David?
Adrian Bankert with us tonight. Adrian,
a woman has been killed when she stopped to move cattle from a country road. The victim, in her 50s, was driving near Marupna, west of Shepparton. She got out of her car when 3 vehicles driving in the opposite direction were involved in an accident. The woman was killed and 3 other drivers were all taken to hospital.
Turkey claims Kurdish militants are behind a bombing attack which killed 18 people. 10 soldiers and 8 civilians lost their lives when a vehicle exploded at a military checkpoint in Istanbul. The blast was so big it left a crater 15 metres wide and 7 metres deep. An infantry station located behind the checkpoint was also damaged.
Tensions rise in Kashmir as protesters clash with police in the disputed border region. Indian forces fired shotgun pellets and tear gas as thousands marched to the burial of a 12-year-old child in Srinagar. The young boy was injured by security forces at an anti-India protest on Friday before succumbing to his injuries. Clashes erupted as young men threw rocks at troops while another group of mourners changed the route to bury the body. Kashmir is experiencing its largest demos against Indian rule in recent times, following the killing of a popular rebel commander by Indian forces.
A man has been arrested in the US following the shooting deaths of 2 police officers in California. The male and female officers were called to a domestic disturbance in Palm Springs. They arrived to find a man threatening to shoot them. It's believed he then ambushed the officers, opening fire at close range. Another officer was injured.
Good evening. The trial of a Gold Coast man accused of killing a New Zealand tourist during a Tinder date has heard the pair had an altercation moments before she died.
Gable Tosti has pleaded not guilty to murdering Rowena Wright, who fell from his 14th-storey balcony.
The steely determination of an innocent man or the absent gaze of a murderer. 30-year-old Gable Tosti accused of murder after Rowena Wright plunged 14 floors from his apartment to a gruesome death. The jury told by the prosecution Tosti forced her onto the balcony, locking her outside. While trying to escape, she made an attempt to climb down and in the course of doing so, fell. But an altercation in the lead up to the fall is critical, much of it captured on an audio recording which the Crown say demonstrates Tosti becoming increasingly aggressive. The prosecutor told the court at one point in the recording, Tosti says, "You are lucky I haven't chucked you off my balcony, you goddamn psycho little b." But Tosti's defence barrister says the charges don't make sense. He says Miss Wright had become increasingly erratic in the apartment. He claims Tosti asked her to leave after she began throwing rocks at him. His client, not knowing how to handle the situation, locked her outside. Late this afternoon, 7 News was given access to these photos shown to the jury, images of a reenactment and the crime scene. Miss Wright's family are in court for the hearing, her mother in tears as Tosti pleaded not guilty. Rather unusually for a murder trial, Tosti is out on bail. That means he'll have to walk in and out of court every day, at least for the remainder of the trial. After that, his freedom rests with a jury. Ben Murphy.
And Ben, how did Gable Tosti handle today's hearing?
Well, he didn't say much, Bill, but he certainly seemed calm and confident as he was listening to court proceedings. Tomorrow, the jury will hear more of that chilling audio taken just moments before Warina Wright's death, and they'll also hear from more witnesses, including police and scientific
To the index of other news on a Friday night, and the U.S. is now blaming the Russians. A new development involving the American election. The U.S. outright blaming the Russian government now for hacking American political institutions, including the DNC, the goal to interfere with the elections, according to U.S. officials. U.S. intelligence saying, quote, only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized these activities. We do have a new development tonight after that smartphone on fire, the smoke in the cabin on that passenger jet. Take a look tonight. It caused the evacuation of a Southwest flight. The scorched device now seized by government authorities. The owner says the Galaxy Note 7 started smoldering in his pocket, filling the plane with smoke. The Consumer Product Safety Commission is now examining the device to determine if it was Samsung's replacement model, as the owner claims, and what caused it to overheat on that plane. A seriously close call for a passenger jet. Take a look at this landing with the winds behind me. It made us think when we saw this picture today. Unable to land in heavy winds in Prague, the plane slamming into the ground. The pilot aborts the landing, takes off again. On its second attempt, the plane finally made a safe landing.
A man suspected of planning a bomb attack has been captured in Leipzig after a 2-day manhunt. German police had been looking for 22-year-old Syrian refugee Jeber al-Bakra since a raid on an apartment in the eastern city of Chemnitz uncovered several hundred grams of what they called highly volatile explosives. A spokesperson for the Federal Prosecutor's Office in the western city of Karlsruhe said all signs pointed to an Islamist-motivated attack. Media reports suggest the suspect may have been planning to target a Berlin airport. He's been taken to Karlsruhe, where he'll appear before a court. Al-Bakra arrived in Germany in 2015 and is officially recognised as a refugee, authorities say. The news that a refugee is suspected of planning such an attack is likely to prove unwelcome for German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Her Conservative CDU party is flagging in the polls after an open-door policy saw the arrival of almost 1 million migrants last year alone.
2 militants suspected of planning a car bombing in Turkey blew themselves up in an operation near Ankara after refusing to surrender to police. Forensic teams found plastic explosives and 200 kilograms of ammonium nitrate. The provincial governor said there was a high probability of a link to the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, adding that they were probably going to attack the capital. Kurdish militants have been responsible for a wave of bombings in Turkey since a truce broke down last year. From the air, Hurricane Matthew's impact on Haiti becomes clearer. The death toll has doubled to almost 900 as rescuers get access to the country's poor and densely populated southern coast. UN officials estimate that 350,000 people are in need of emergency assistance. In the town of Jeremy, which saw 80% of its buildings flattened, aid has begun to arrive. With many towns cut off by flooding, supplies must arrive by air, giving an eagle-eye view of the damage.
The closer we got to Jeremy, the further from Port-au-Prince, it was just complete devastation. Anything that was not concrete was flattened. The palm trees were bent over in half or completely ripped of their leaves. There were several little fishing villages that just looked desolate.
As one of the world's poorest countries, Haiti was still struggling to recover from the 2010 earthquake. The UN estimated 55,000 people were still living in tents when the hurricane struck. The physical destruction is just an initial effect of the storm, with aid agencies fearing the subsequent flooding could lead to a surge in cases of cholera.